Yeah.
You're unmuted.
Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order, Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is October 8th, 2024. We're in the Frank Walderhouse Boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham. Here. Janat.
Here.
Markey.
Here.
Nye is excused. Roloffs.
Here.
Sauer.
Present.
Worsakki.
Here. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Benzie County. I would ask for your guidance with the decisions we will make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. In the name of your Son, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Just a question, if I could, Bob, and I'm trying to read through this real quick now, but there's gonna be some discussion about a contribution to an FSA.
Mhm.
Should we remove that?
I would like to move forward with the employee who's affected by this, and then the commissioners who are affected will have to take action at a later date, since 3 of you will have to recuse yourself, but I would like to get the employee taken care of.
Okay, so this agenda item says specifically employees over 65.
Yeah, so we'll modify it. It'll be 1 employee, and then the 3 commissioners who are affected will take action again at a later
Okay.
date.
So there is a motion and support. I do want to clarify for the audience especially, and if commissioners aren't aware, the afternoon meeting, we are going to take place 10 minutes after the conclusion of this meeting. So when we're done here, we'll take a short break and we'll move into the study session, which has basically minimal agenda items. So it's best if we just move right in and get that taken care of. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? So moved. We have approval and or correction of the minutes. September 24, 2024, closed session.
I've had phone calls on a couple corrections on the regular session meetings, the annual session, and I've made those corrections and they're showing up on your packets right now.
Do we have closed session minutes?
Yeah, we do those separate. Those are here. We just
Okay.
have to do the first set of minutes.
I move to accept the minutes as corrected.
Yep.
Yep.
Markey will support.
All right, Tim. Motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? So moved. Closed session. September 24, 2024. Thanks, Evan.
Markey will make the motion to approve the meeting minutes from the closed session of September 24th, 2024.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Karen,
Karen, okay.
all those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye, opposed? So moved. Brings us to our first public input. Is there anybody that would like to share this morning? Sir?
Hi, I'm Javid Shah. For those that I didn't introduce myself to at the last meeting. I'm running for commissioner in District 7. And one of my focuses will be to revitalize our forests and the way that we manage them. I believe we can use less pesticides. That in itself will create a bit more work, but I believe it'll be worth it in the end. I believe we can also change the way that the waste from cutting trees and branches is used. It can be used to create biochar to support local farmers and regenerative farmers, which will help with carbon sequestering and a lot of other things, helping to build our soil. I also believe a larger project could be to turn our forests and revitalize them into food forests, which can still support conservation, support wildlife, while providing food for people in the area and providing jobs in those local areas where there are forests and there may not be as many jobs. Like where I live between Thompsonville and Honor, there's a lot of forest area and a lot of people commute to Traverse City to work. There could be local jobs there for them. Yeah, that would be one of my main focuses. I also want to say I haven't worn dress clothes since I left my corporate job. So it's nice to well, now I freelance and I get to work in sweatpants from home or wherever I am. So it's nice to be able to wear these clothes to potentially represent my community and have the chance to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else under public input? Mr. Evans? Been a while since we've seen you, sir.
I enjoy that, and I think you
Which
do too.
is always a good thing, yeah.
Jim Evans, Joyfield Township, and I'm here representing no one but myself. I see that Betsy Coffey is on the agenda at 9:30. It's unfortunate she's not here to ask questions, but you folks may be able to ask some questions. As you know, she was a key vote in the passage of House Bill 5120, which morphed into PA 233, which is going to take effect next month. So renewable energy in the state of Michigan has been pulled from local control, zoning and planning of every municipality in the state because of her vote. And there's still work to be done to see what we can do to convert that back. But I'm curious as to what her opinion is and what may be coming down the pike for housing. I know that the renewable primarily affects rural communities, but it doesn't affect places like Frankfort and probably downtown Benzonia and Traverse City and much of the downtown areas. But the housing, if they take away local control from housing, it certainly will affect everyone. And that'd be just a good question for Betsy today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other public input? Close public input. Move on to elected officials, department heads. Madam?
I'm Paula Eberhardt and I'm your Register of Deeds, Benzie County. And I know it sounds like a broken record when I get up here, but we have been alerted on some more property fraud in our county. It was a 40-acre piece in Beulah here that almost went through sale. And thank God the title company just had a funny feeling about it and was able to stop it. So I just want you to let your constituents know that we have the property fraud brochures and on our website too, to sign up and just keep an eye on your neighbors' properties. It seems to be vacant properties that they're hitting, but the people that were trying to sell it were actually from Ohio. They didn't live around here. but they were portraying that they owned the property. So just want to bring that up again and let you know it is happening here in Benzie County.
So are these people, have they been caught?
The sale actually didn't go through, so I don't believe that that could be considered a charge. The title company stopped it in time. So I'm not sure. I could find out probably from the title company what happened after that.
That'd be good to know.
I ask her a question. And this is something I just recently saw. They're not doing it to take the property, they're doing it to put a lien against it or a fine, basically get money out of the property.
To sell it.
Yeah, but they don't want it.
No,
They don't
No.
want, they just want, same thing as stealing homes.
quick sale.
It's just, I can't fathom why we can't cure this.
Right. Well, I get reports all the time from our software vendor and they said the FBI said that property fraud is up 500% in the last couple months. Wow. So we've also got a case of squatters that we know of in Benzie County and it's hopefully being taken care of, but our little town is no longer,
Shame.
yeah. So
Thanks for.
you're
informing
welcome.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
All of that property that you mentioned, was that represented by a realtor?
Yes, it was.
Were
And
they a seasoned realtor?
no, she's the one that actually called me and felt very foolish, but it was a quick sale and they thought everything was legit. Obviously didn't do enough on their end or the people buying or selling it had enough to show, so.
Okay.
Yeah, just want to keep everybody's eyes open to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Any other elected official department heads? Alrighty. Move forward in finance.
Morning, everyone. Susie Mills, Chief Deputy Treasurer, here to present the bills to be paid, to be approved for October 8th in the amount of $461,209.38.
Janat moves for approval.
Markey will support.
There's a motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Move into old business. Consider a county FSA contribution for employees over 65 years old.
Hi, everybody. So with our change in our healthcare insurance as of 10/1, we moved to a high deductible healthcare plan with an HSA affiliated with that plan. Under IRS guidelines, those over the age of 65 are not eligible to partake in the HSA plan contribution. And so what we're trying to do is make things a bit fair among the employees. And so we'd like to propose to you to do a contribution the same as the health savings account contribution, but to an FSA, which those employees are eligible for. Now, 3 of the 4 affected employees are commissioners, and you cannot vote upon that because it affects yourselves. I would like to move this forward, though, for the single employee that it does affect to get them taken care of. And then at a future meeting, hopefully the next meeting when all 7 are present, we'll move forward with the contribution for commissioners. So what is in front of you today, if we can adjust the motion just a little bit and tweak it and say for the 1 active employee, that's what I would ask and recommend today, is to just take care of that employee.
And just for clarification, you're only asking the contribution to match the HSA, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
And is the reason we can't do the other is because we don't have a quorum to do it?
Yes. So because it's 3 of the 7 commissioners, I do need 4 commissioners to vote on that. You cannot vote on it upon yourselves because it's directly affecting yourselves. And so I need 4 commissioners present to take that action.
So Janat moves that the Board of Commissioners approves a contribution to the 24-25 fiscal year to a flexible spending account in the amount of $1,800, up to $1,800 per account for the 1 employee affected by the IRS Health Savings Account restrictions.
Sauer will second.
There's motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Am I supposed to rescind?
You can vote,
Yep.
actually, because this is just on the employee.
Yes.
okay. Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
motion carried.
All righty. Anything else you want to add?
Mm-mm.
New business, item A, consider approving purchase of exercise equipment for the county fitness center.
So we have a beautiful gym for our staff here in the lower level of the sheriff's office. And that gym is in need of some updated equipment. What is in there currently is much of it is duplicative. It's also equipment that is antiquated, and as it breaks, there's nothing we can do about it. So we had put together a gym committee, and you'll see the list of folks serving on that gym committee, which includes Commissioner Worsakki, to go over the gym equipment and kind of talk about what the gym really needs. And the consensus of that was the gym really needed some more cardio type equipment versus the weightlifting equipment. And so Deputy Chris Cotton was able to get multiple proposals to look over the different gym equipment that the gym committee is recommending, and that is in your packet today. We did budget in the general fund for a large purchase of equipment because we knew this year would be a kind of a big hit because the gym equipment that's in there now is so old and just not what we're truly needing to serve all staff. And so this is within budget that was approved as part of the 10-1 budget. We've also approved additional funding in the general fund for maintenance. So there's separate money for maintenance. So this purchase of equipment is within that amount of money that we did budget. This includes installation, it includes maintenance of this gym equipment. And we're hopeful that by adding some of this equipment, that we'll have more staff utilizing that gym facility, because it is a wonderful benefit that you agreed to offer our staff. Deputy Chris Cotton is here if you have questions specifically about the equipment. Otherwise, Commissioner Worsakki also serves on that committee and was part of the discussion as well.
Sergeant Cotton, was there any comments you would like to make? That's up to me, not her. Sorry.
No, it was a good group of people. We sat and talked for quite a bit and had some side meetings also. I think we came up with some good quotes and found a person that was local that he services most of Traverse City. He's local Fife Lake, and he would be the one that would be doing the installation and our maintenance throughout the years.
Nice.
What?
I have a couple questions. Is it okay?
Sure.
The weightlifting equipment that you said, or the committee said is obsolete, is that actual machinery or is it free weights?
So the machinery some of the machinery is in good shape. The problem is that the companies and the parts for them are obsolete. They don't make them anymore. So if they break, they break. The free weights, yes, there's problems with the free weights that is down there. Some of the metal's chipping. So that also will be replaced in the, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we had the funds for that. And is there a time frame? I always like to see a time frame for responsibility of the removal.
Yes, ma'am. So what we were gonna do is once we went through today and we figure out where we're gonna go from there, we're gonna put out an email as directed by the county administrator. We're gonna offer the equipment to employees. And then at that point, once anything is left over, then Tyler is gonna remove it free of charge.
Okay, so there is a time frame.
Yes, ma'am. When he gets everything
Okay.
ordered, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes. How much use is that getting right now?
Well, right now, if I was to look at the sheets, we've gone through probably, I'd say 7 full sheets. I think it takes 50 signatures on it. Most of the people that are using it for the weights, but we got a treadmill down there. Some other people are using that. Plus we bought a brand new row machine. So people are using that also. With what's coming now is we'll end up having the 1 treadmill down there. We're going to add 2 more. We'll have an elliptical, we'll have a glide. So there's gonna be a lot more cardio down there for folks to come down. Plus the machines that we're buying are gonna be very user-friendly for people that don't wanna have to put weights on a machine. They can go down and put something, with a pin and just go.
When you say sheets, I assume you mean sign-up sheets?
Yes, sir. Yes, we have we don't have anything electronical down there. We just go down, people that come in, sign a sheet, time in and time out, and we've gone through probably 8 or 9 sheets right now.
And you think that with the new equipment, we'll probably get more use?
I think so, yes, sir, because the people that are coming down now is a group of people that use a lot of the free weights as what we just said. And some people come down and use the row machine and things like that. But once you get more of the cardio down there, I believe it'll probably encompass more of the staff and bring a lot more people in there.
And I'm glad that the employees as a whole get to use it, but quite frankly, I'm more concerned about the sheriff's deputies, making sure that they're physically fit to do their job.
Absolutely.
Okay, and this is kind of outside what you're asking, but do we pay the deputies to any workout time?
No.
Okay. So they
All
do
the
that-
waivers that are signed, so when folks want access to the gym, they have to sign certain forms, including waivers, and that they will not work out while they're on company time. We're trying to avoid work comp loss, in those situations. And so, no, they're not paid to do it. They have to do it in their off time, but it is accessible 24 hours a day to all the staff who have completed the appropriate waivers.
Yeah, I understand now that you've mentioned work comp. I get it. Yeah, thanks for being here today.
Yes, sir. So, all set?
I just want to thank Chris for all the hard work he did on this. He did a lot of the legwork, getting all of the quotes and everything on the equipment. So that being said, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the proposal from Fitness and Exercise Solutions, quote number 17307, in the not to exceed amount of $39,510 for gym equipment with funds available in the general fund.
Support, Edelman.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Item B, consider entering into an interlocal agreement with the city of Frankfurt related to the emergency communications tower.
This has been in front of you once before, and it was referred back to the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. As you know, there is a postage stamp size piece of property in Frankfurt where we are putting in an emergency communications tower. Rebecca Hubers has some rather cool videos of them stacking the tower if you want to see them. Otherwise, if you do want to see it and drive through Frankfurt, the tower is in. They're still working out all the other things. It will not be online until early next year. But this agreement here is being recommended forward by the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. It does settle on a 65-35 split with the city of Frankfurt. So originally we went from 80-20 to 70-30 to 60-40. And so 65-35 is where we settled on. In addition to that 65-35, the city of Frankfurt will manage, mowing the lawn and snow removal and those general maintenance items that their DPW would handle. So this agreement is in front of you today for approval. If there's any questions, feel free to ask me. Otherwise, Chair Roloffs and Vice Chair Markey also sit on that subcommittee with Commissioner Nye.
I would like to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves an emergency communications tower site lease agreement with the city of Frankfurt for the initial 3-year period with automatic annual extensions to occur until the year 2072, subject to approval as to its form by legal counsel, and authorizes the chair to sign.
Markey will support.
Thank you. Motion and support. Is there further discussion?
Yeah, just one question. Katie, when I see the word consensus versus approval, unanimous approval, it tells me that there is some discussion and some doubt about this. What was the dissenting concern?
There really wasn't any dissenting concern. It was my opinion that through this consensus, we were fine to bring it forward rather than making the official motion. It was quite a quite a elaborate negotiation back and forth with the mayor as well as their attorney Ross Hammersley. I don't think there was really any dissent. Now, some wanted to shoot for the moon of 50-50, but we did not land at 50-50. But I don't think there was any dissenting. We just didn't take action. It was by consensus.
Okay, well, I do want to recognize Frankfurt and the negotiating team for coming up with a workable document.
Okay,
One question. My concern is the 3 years.
Mhm.
You see that it's an automatic annual extension, but what happens at the end of 3 years if who's responsible for dismantling or the whatever? I'm just, this is one of those 99-year lease things that I look at,
Mhm.
that we want a guarantee of some sort. We're sticking our neck out there a long ways. And I'm not that anything's gonna happen, but the possibility's there. That's what I worry about.
So it's quite unlikely that anything's going to happen. There is parameters in there that indicates that there has to be a certain amount of time notice before any changes are made. And once we're on to the state system, that adds another element of security that it's a much harder feat because the state's involved. Our legal counsel is also recommending that this document be recorded with the Register of Deeds as an official document associated with that piece of property too, which also adds another layer of security.
Guess what I'm looking at is, are we gonna renegotiate every 3 years? We're just gonna keep going.
Can I
Yes,
answer that
ma'am.
for you? Our charter limits us to 3-year contracts, and that's the way our attorney fixed it so that going forward, you would have, I forget how many years of automatic renewal. I think it was 45. It ended up extending it 45 years. So that was a concern from the beginning. And so that's what he worked into the verbiage, is so that it would be automatic renewal.
I look
And
at
the
this
reason
as,
we did that is because of the change of councils and
yes,
so on and so
my
forth.
concern.
I know you intend on being here for many, many more years.
I don't think I'll be here for 40 years more.
Okay, I just.
Not really. We were trying to protect, any future councils. I don't foresee that, but never know in this crazy
No, you
world.
don't. Move to Ottawa County and let me know how that works.
So,
Just saying.
I think that the fact you got restrictions that a contract of no greater than 3 years speaks to itself. But Katie, isn't there some type of federal influence on this too?
Federal,
Yeah, so is this, I thought you had mentioned to us one time that the federal government or some agency other than ourselves had some influence over that tower.
well, so once the tower is online, other agencies are going to depend on the tower as well for radio traffic. Specifically, the state also, funded quite a bit of money with the help of our representatives. So there's a lot going for it that it doesn't ever leave.
Okay. It was the state, not the feds.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Now, Coast Guard is in the area, so they theoretically can use the
State
radio
police.
system. And then, yeah, the state police and the park service, everybody talks on the same radio system at certain levels.
National Park Service.
Right.
Yes. I don't know these agencies.
I do have one more question. Have you sent this to your attorney yet?
Mhm.
Okay. And so you will need a clean copy that doesn't say draft on it.
Yep, and I'll
Okay.
send that to Tammy after the
Okay,
meeting.
I'll, you
Thank
have
you.
that. Okay. I didn't know if Ross went ahead and sent it or not.
He did.
We will be addressing it on our end, on Tuesday's meeting. So
Perfect.
I'm glad to see it closed.
Thank you.
Shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs,
Yes?
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
You're not,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
So it's 9:30. We're gonna move to Representative Kofia. If you would like to present for a bit, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be back with you today.
just to give, as I have tried to do over my term, periodic updates of, and it won't be comprehensive because we passed a lot of legislation in Lansing, but I will try to give some highlights based on some of the key priorities that I've heard from our shared constituents over the last 2 years. But I want to start, as I always do, by saying thank you to each of you for your service here at the County Commission. As a former commissioner myself, really appreciate your service, and always here to extend a hand of partnership where we can collaborate, like with that tower you were just talking about. That was an exciting thing to see come through in the budget. And Senator Bumstead was, of course, very much a partner as well. So a lot of the focus earlier this year was obviously the state budget. And so I'm going to touch on some key priorities and budget funding that actually is going into effect this month, because our budget cycle starts in October. But one major area that matters to everyone, I think, in our community is education. And so I was pleased to see that again this year we did the universal breakfast and lunch for all school children in our public schools, so Benzie Central, Frankfurt, et cetera. There is a bill that will make that permanent, and I'm eager for us to get that done so we don't have to wonder year over year. I will also add, I'm learning a lot in my first 2 years. I think that there's some room for us to work in what they call boilerplate language within the budget, to build in more requirements that food be sourced from the region that it is serving. And I see that on several levels as a positive thing. And I'm working with our farmers and growers and some of our advocates on this front. It's good for our local farmers and growers if the food is actually being sourced to our kids more at a regional basis, and it's healthier food for the youth, for our kids. So that's something just know I'm working on. It's not as straightforward as one would think to get a change in boilerplate in the state budget, but we're working on it. Another piece, and I talked about this last year, this was my first standalone policy bill, was getting transportation equity for our rural school districts. You might recall I talked about that last year. I grew up in a district that closed 3 months early. I've told you this story out in Kalkaska. And when they reopened, what they had to do to save money to keep the doors open was cut busing in a 400 square mile district. There's been inequity in our state school aid fund budget for my entire life on that front. So my first standalone bill was a per pupil per mile equity formula. And I'm happy that that got in last year's state budget, and it has remained in this year's state budget. So that's an additional 125 million for schools like Benzie Central, which just also has a massive, massive bus route. And that means less money going into the covering the money going to the gas tank, and then providing a lot more funding for our students' education in the classroom, money that downstate schools already have because they don't have these giant bus routes to cover. So that stayed in the budget this year. Local government, some things very specific to your work. I want to share that we did 75 million for a revenue sharing trust fund. There's always this push-pull of where those tax dollars go, how much they're actually available to our local counties, cities, villages, townships versus floating up to Lansing, and who knows. So this did make it 75 million, which is 30 million more than last year. The goal with the revenue sharing trust fund is to create a growing revenue source that our local communities can count on, that tracks with growth in state revenue and protects it from being allocated the state priorities being local. I have a call to action that I'm going to repeat to you all, do with it what you will. But this is Michigan Association of Counties. This is something they are encouraging, so you may have already seen it. There is a bill that we've already passed through the House of Representatives, I believe last fall, 2 bills actually, that would create a permanent fund. It would create this actual revenue trust sharing trust fund and make it a permanent protected revenue stream for local communities. So I'm encouraging commissioners, if you'd like, contact the Senate Finance Committee. The Senate Finance Committee is where these revenue sharing bills are right now, and I have the bill numbers. House Bills 4274 and 4275. If we can get the Senate to pass these and the governor to sign off on them, and it needs to be this term, and we're running out of, runway for that to happen. So I would encourage engaging the Senate Finance Committee. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Senator Bumstead about this, but to me, this, as a former local elected, I think this would be a very good thing to have that consistent, permanent, protected funding for local communities. So it passed overwhelmingly last fall. I think there were only 4 no's out of 110, if that tells you anything. So again, House Bills 4274 and 75, Senate Finance Committee. urging them to take that up and get it done. Another very county specific that will blend right into you all's budget that you pass every year as well. There was a $5 increase. I don't know if the sheriff or the undersheriff are here, but a $5 increase for the county jail reimbursement program. That, of course, can be a pretty expensive expenditure. I know from my time at Grand Traverse County. So some additional funding to cover those costs. And then scoping back out to just general concerns that I've heard from constituents that I know you all probably hear about as well. Childcare. We are a childcare desert in this region still. We lost so many of our childcares over the last several years. And I think it's like 3 children for every slot currently. So, and we kind of took 2 hits as a state because a lot of the federal COVID funding has phased out. So the state is trying to backfill some of that, and we put an additional 65 million towards the Child Development and Care Public Assistance line. That's to help increase the hourly reimbursement rates for childcare providers, and that's by 15%. And I did want to drill down on this a little more because which childcares qualify seems important. So centers, group and family homes, and license exempt providers all will receive this rate increase. It is ongoing. It's not one time, which is a good thing. And then there is also some funding in that budget allocation for bonuses for childcare workers. If you talk about keeping your childcare open, that's one of the issues that has been a problem is retaining staff. Healthcare, another major area of concern, especially in a rural context. I'm talking to too many, nurses and other healthcare professionals who are looking to move downstate where it's, more affordable to live. That's going the wrong way for our region. We need to be keeping our rural healthcare workers. So trying to help address that, 9.2 million was put in for nursing school student loan repayment. I mean, if you think about your mortgage or your rent and all the expenses, if you can take that off the backs of our nurses, our healthcare professionals, that is another way to try to ease that financial burden for them and keep them hopefully in our region. And then quickly, housing. That you've heard me talk about it. We talk about it all the time. Major priority. Another 100 million toward housing programs in the state of Michigan, and that's in addition to 50 million ongoing that we set up last year in a permanent housing fund. I think it's the first time Michigan has built that into their state budget, a permanent housing fund, and that comes straight from the corporate income tax. That 50 million. So look, it's not the whole solution, but I do think it's important to start budgeting and purposely sending funding to our Housing Development Authority, which typically has just relied on federal funding. We as a state have not traditionally sort of invested a lot of our state dollars towards this, but it is becoming more and more urgent. And quick data point on that, I've knocked doors in mobile home parks in our district where people are paying rent of $1,500 a month. $1,500 for a mobile home park. It really does sort of emphasize what a crisis this is and how much we need to continue as we are in public service and in leadership and as a community continue to look for solutions. All right, so that's some budget highlights. I'm going to shift a little bit quickly to a couple of the bills that just passed through the House in September that I think are of interest and relevant to our region. The first, we have 12 federally recognized tribes in Michigan. One of them overlaps with my district, the Grand Traverse Band. And the tribes for many years have been asking for an office of tribal liaison so that when we, the legislature, are taking up bills that impact tribal communities, budget appropriations, that sort of thing, that they have an explicit person at the table. So we did vote, and I think this was pretty bipartisan. We voted to establish the Office of Tribal Liaison in September. And our local tribe, Grand Traverse Band, was very supportive. And to me, that one was a no-brainer. Another one has to do with transparency and ethics in government, which is always a relevant topic. I am a part of a 7-bill package called the BRIGHT Act. That is an acronym because we love our acronyms in state governments. It stands for Bringing Reform, Integrity, Transparency, and Ethics. And as I said, it's a 7-bill package. We passed the first bill out of the House a couple weeks ago. And this bill specifically allows the Secretary of State, when somebody is violating campaign finance law in real time during their campaign, you all have probably seen it as candidates. They're putting things out without the disclaimer. They're actually doing unethical and illegal practices in their campaign. Currently, there's really no mechanism to do real-time enforcement. And that means sometimes people will wantonly break the law for several months, might even get elected, and it might be several months before their reports come in and there's able to be any sort of follow through. So this is shortening that up and allowing some real-time enforcement if there are some provable egregious examples of violations. So it passed the House. There are several more bills, including one that would close the revolving door to the lobby core, which I can tell you is a real problem in Lansing, and it's long overdue that we close that so that someone like me at the end of my tenure can't, maybe get budget priorities or policy priorities for a lobby firm that I'm hoping to work for the minute I leave office. I'm not saying that most people would do that, but I am saying the practice is invited by the lack of any sort of requirement of a cooling off period. So that is another bill in the package, and I have a commitment from the House Speaker that we will move that yet this year. And then finally, really importantly, we passed a budget supplemental and did an additional 125 million towards school safety and mental health. I don't need to tell you all how important those two items are, and that was something we wanted to make sure to get in the budget in time for it to go into effect in October. And finally, for real this time, my office constituent work by the numbers. I have a small team. They work very hard, and I could not do this work without them. With their support, I've done over 1,000 meetings with constituents and stakeholders in my first term. We've helped about 7,000 constituents with casework with state government, and that's anything from liquor licenses that are being delayed to permitting issues to housing needs. We've had close to 50 public office hours around the district over the last 2 years and several town halls. And lastly, my office is always available, of course, to all of you. Please reach out if you'd like to get together one-on-one, as some of us have. But to the community, my website is repcofia.com. It lists all my upcoming office hours. You can sign up for a monthly e-news. We will not spam you. It's just giving you some informative information about what's happening with the legislature, funding opportunities, things like that. And my phone and email are listed there. If anyone ever has a need, please reach out. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions you all might have, but there's a little quick summary.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I could,
Yes, sir.
could I yield my time to Jim Evans?
Mr. Evans? Mr. Evans, can you step to the microphone?
Without your vote, it would not have passed, but it basically took away local control from every community in the state of Michigan, not just your district, our district. I know you represent just Platte and Inland here, but Elmira, right? I know that there's things that are still in the process to possibly regain control, local control of that, but I was curious about the housing, that there's been so much monetary influence, 100 million just put into that. Is the legislators looking at any removal of local control for housing in the state of Michigan like they did for 5120 and PA2?
And 5120, sorry, we have so many bill numbers that I just need you to refresh me. Is that the solar siting? Are we talking about the wind and solar renewable energy? Okay, thank you. And thank you for your question. Thanks, Art. So here's the thing. The renewable energy bill package that's being referred to, I will tell you, under the dome, and then I'll get to the housing question. There was quite a bit that happened in that negotiation, and I will say having rural members of the Democratic caucus, which is the majority, was really important. We actually held that bill package up for days and up to when they were ready to run it, as if we were sitting all here and getting ready to vote. We held it for several hours, and rural representatives like myself actually worked to get language in to build back 8 months of the local communities, the townships, the impacted townships having the ability to work through the process of deciding whether to approve permitting for solar or wind installations. That wasn't in the original legislation. We also built in some revenue sharing back to the local communities that are impacted that wouldn't have been there had rural Democrats who understand that this is more likely to affect us than, let's say, a very built out urban environment where they don't have room to put up wind or solar, et cetera, at the scope. Some other things that we were able to build in was some support for legal protection for local communities if they have this permitting request come to them. So it's a little more nuanced, and it was very important that we actually had representation. Representative Jen Hill, who's from the Marquette area in the UP, Representative Reggie Miller from Van Buren Township, which is mostly a large farming community, myself, Representative Andrews from the Southwest side. So we actually were able to build in some pretty important improvements in that citing legislation. That being said, it is important to compare apples to apples here. Most other, whether you're talking nuclear, whether you're talking oil and gas, some of the more traditional forms of energy, those are not decided at the local level anyway. They're decided at the state and the national level, energy build out. And so what we're trying to do is give a little bit more, keep a little bit more control at the local level for these renewable forms of energy. But it is important to note that most of the other types of energy are not decided at the local level anyhow. Now, for the housing piece, I think the answer would be, I can definitively say the answer is no. When I was on the Grand Traverse County Commission, the former legislature made an attempt to take away local control, and some of you might remember this, you might have been in your roles, take away local control of regulating short-term rentals. Airbnb and Vrbo and National Association of Realtors are some pretty big, frankly, well-moneyed players in the Lansing space, and they were pushing really hard for this because it's much more convenient for them to just have a statewide standard. So what might Benzonia or Lake Ann want to do, they want it to be the exact same as Detroit or Grand Rapids, which for us doesn't make any darn sense. Those are very different communities, and what one community might be okay with, another is not. I was a county commissioner at the time, and I pushed back, as most of us did at the local level, at that idea of stripping away local control. The legislature then got their hands slapped pretty hard. And what I can tell you is some of my colleagues who were a part of that, they are very disinterested in touching it again because it was the blowback was pretty intense. What we have now and what I am interested in to give local communities more tools, but not sort of impose a statewide mandate. There is a bill package that would enable, not require, local communities to levy a 6% excise fee on visitors who are staying in short-term rentals. Use that 6% funding to pay for water, sewer, infrastructure, public safety, right? First responders and housing for local community, our workers, our seniors. That is a growing crisis that I talked about earlier. That is a bill package that I think has a lot of merit to give local communities the option. Not every community might choose to do that, but some might. Right now you can't because it's not allowed in state law. So that is a state level decision, whether or not we essentially enable local communities to take that action. I'm very much leaning in that direction. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if Lake Ann or Benzonia or, Frankfurt might make that choice, but I do like the idea that they have the option because I'm hearing from them the cost of infrastructure, the cost of first responders and public safety, the impact of short-term rentals on our housing stock or our workforce or our community. So that was a very long answer to your question. But I've given this one a lot of thought and been pretty much in the thick of it, trying to strike that balance of the state getting out of the way at times, providing some additional tools, and where there does need to be some level of state oversight, like in the energy space, still clawing back some ability of local communities to have a say in a process like a solar or wind farm. So there you go, Commissioner and Sir. Other questions?
Anybody else? Gary?
Well, if if I understood you correctly, you were talking about state revenue sharing
Mm-hmm.
and the increase they talked about this year. If I got it right, went strictly to communities that had a high crime rate, totally annihilated areas up here.
I think you might be thinking of the Public Safety Trust Fund, because this is a revenue sharing trust fund and it's more broad. There's two different ones, but I can say about the Public Safety Trust Fund, I had that thought when one of my downstate colleagues brought forward this Public Safety Trust Fund. I was like, oh my gosh, I was first skeptical because I don't feel like we necessarily are we aren't experiencing some of the same things. But I asked the question, Commissioner Sauer, what about domestic violence? What about opioid related violence and crime? What about some of these other things that I know more rural communities are in fact grappling with? And will that Public Safety Trust Fund funding be available for those types of issues in communities? The answer was yes. And when I heard that, I was convinced that it was worth tackling. Sexual assault, domestic violence, opioid addiction, mental health. When I talk to my, local law enforcement, those are some of the toughest challenges that we face. And that Public Safety Trust Fund is available for those purposes. Yeah, great question though. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? I don't think so. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to see
Appreciate
you,
it.
Katie.
Thank you.
So before moving into our 10 a.m., like to hear from Benzie Senior Resources, consider an amendment to the agreement with Benzie Senior Resources related to meetings. Thanks for being here.
I received a call from Benzie Senior Resources requesting perhaps a change to the agreement that we have with them. As you know, we have an agreement with them to provide the Commission on Aging services for Benzie County. In our agreement, we hold them to the Open Meetings Act standards. However, if they were acting upon their own, they're not necessarily held to all those same standards. And their board is struggling with quorum. They have quite a few folks who go away during the colder months. And so they're struggling with quorum and having a quorum to vote on actions. So the request in front of you today is to amend that agreement to require them to hold public meetings to the best of their ability, but not necessarily hold them to the same standards as the Open Meetings Act. So in essence, this would allow them to vote via Zoom online if they were in those situations. That's what's in front of you today. And Doug can kind of talk about the why and those sorts of things.
So we have, over the years, we've had some great board members, but as they age out somewhat, they go, I know, I love it. They go away for the winter months, and stuff. And so essentially following the Open Meetings Act, they can't participate, they can listen to, but they can't vote, on action items. And we have potential new board members that are in the same scenario, or even our current board members. As Katie alluded to, we're a nonprofit 501c3. We don't have to follow the Open Meetings Act, but we gladly do at your request. But this is really putting a hindrance on our ability to make positive decisions for the community seniors and stuff. We would still have our meetings public and all that, but we're just asking to see if we can conduct business via electronic, either conference calls, Zoom, Teams, whatever, like did during the pandemic, which everyone could do that. And I would hope legislators would have tackled that a little bit more and to allow that to have. I mean, it's I don't want to use the new norm, but it is the new way we do things now. The remote access, it's all over the place. That's kind of where we're at. I mean, it benefits the agency, it benefits the seniors of Benzie County if we have a very active board that can make good decisions that will impact the lives of our seniors and the vitality of Benzie Senior Resources. And
Tim?
Yeah, Tim.
I was going to point out, I have attended several of their board meetings and they do have a very, very talented board. I think they do a fantastic job. And I have seen several of them participate via Zoom, although they're not allowed to vote. They do a fantastic job with the remote access.
So the contract would be written up that they would maintain public meetings, but that they would be allowed to participate and take action via digital means. So that we're not holding up any sort of business while folks maybe are out of town. In speaking with Ms. Call, Nancy Call, she stressed that this would not be the fall to, this would be when it's needed, that they would still prefer to be in person as much as they can as a board, but when folks are out of towns, those folks would participate online.
And I see it as more of a transition. And it's not going to set precedent for people that are under the Open Meeting Act, so it's separate there. And to have all the opinions on it, I could see it as balance and transition on this.
So Doug, a couple things. First, it's good to see you here. I hope things are improving in your personal life for you.
It's a struggle, but you know, it's going.
So really what you're needing is they're currently participating remotely. They just can't vote.
They just
Yeah.
cannot vote on action items, correct?
Somewhere along the line, I thought any agency that receives 50% or more of their revenue from tax dollars is subject to open meetings.
Well, it's worded in a sense of performing a duty on behalf of. Yeah, I looked into that with legal counsel too, because that I've read as well, and it's regarding the services that they're providing on behalf of the county. Now, you as the county board, though, are still acting as the Commission on Aging and performing that public duty. Their board is their 501c3 board. You still maintain the Commission on Aging action of it all.
Okay,
So
so,
there's where it's a little separate.
and is this a legal opinion you have, or is this your own conclusion?
Yeah, so this is what I spoke with Cole Stoker on regarding whether or not they could even do it specifically. And there's some nuances to it, and they believe that they could make it happen.
And Doug, under the service agreement, this is addressed on page 5, Roman numeral number 11. Is that what you're wanting to amend?
I think it's page 4.
Well, I showed an Open Meeting Act, Freedom of Information Act.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Mhm,
You're wanting to amend that section?
mhm.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approves an amendment to the service agreement with Benzie Senior Resources to allow for remote participation in their public meetings, subject to review by legal counsel, and authorizes the chair to sign. Second.
There's a motion and support. Is there any further discussion?
Are we looking at legal rewriting?
Yeah, our legal wrote the contract initially, and so I will ask them to make an amendment to that agreement to tweak that language based on the action today.
I still feel using public money need to go as far as we can, and I get
Mhm.
that impression, but yeah, I still want your.
I think we've demonstrated under my tenure, the collaboration of working together. I've always, we've had your representation of a county commissioner at our meetings and stuff. Has been
Who's-
very instrumental to the growth of Benzie Senior Resources.
Who's your number 2 right now?
For me.
If you're not available, who steps in?
We've kind of had Kelly Ottinger. Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
Well, the reality is that at some point in time, there's gonna be legislation that gets passed modernizing our practices.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've met some of your board members also, and these are people whose opinions I would respect.
Well, they do a fantastic job. They take things on their own and they go ahead and they follow through with it.
Yeah. Great.
All right, roll call.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Gonna move to our 10 o'clock. Patrick Kozlowski and Professor Carolyn Sutterby with Benzie Behavioral Health.
Wait a second. He didn't say your name. Must be.
Hmm? I don't know.
He comes with everything.
I know you didn't ask for me to be up here, but I just took it upon myself. Yes, you do.
Thanks, Chip.
Yeah, so while the information's coming around, I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit of the history, the problem, how it's paid, and then the results. If that's okay. Okay. So the problem that we had as a CMH, your CMH, was the state of Michigan was really looking for us to enhance mobile crisis response. And the problem that we have is, and it was somewhat alluded to earlier, is the lack of professional staff, and the model that the state has come up with required heavy intensity on master's level social workers, which are few and far between. So we do have 24-hour crisis response, but because it's 2 counties and we're the size of Rhode Island, if you will, and spread out all over the place, we had to come up with a different solution. I also, having been in the field, remember knives being pulled on me and bats being swung at me as I showed up to houses unannounced by the spouse or significant others. And it's just dangerous work in the wee hours of the morning for our staff. So we had several incidences a couple years ago. I sat down with Sheriff Rosa, and we started talking about how to really respond to these scenarios and do it safely. There were some models down in Newaygo where social workers rode along with deputies, et cetera. That simply is not an option for us. So in discussions with the sheriff, we flipped the equation around to what about a behavioral health deputy? In other words, we would pay for a deputy who is trained in critical response and would act on our behalf when they came across a scenario, and then alert us, and then we would proceed. And so I, being somewhat distrustful of the department, decided to use local. And how we came across local dollars, which are like gold to us, is over the years, the legislature has reduced our commitment to a federal program under Section 928 by 3/5, allowing us to have money to pay for this deputy to act on our behalf using local. So I'm hopeful that that will go away, and we'll use the other 2/5 to pick up Manistee County. And so with that, without further ado, I'm as anxious as you are to see this. This is brand spanking new, and how this is the result of how we've done. And in the process of doing that, we brought in Ferris State University, Dr. Carolyn Sutherby here, to analyze us as if we were ants and report out to you how we all did. So without further ado, turn it over. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna start with the bar a little bit low. That was a really nice introduction, but we're not quite at the point where I can give you really great information yet for the data. So we're gonna just take a step back about that, but I appreciate it. We will get there. So a couple things in your packet, I just want to highlight so it can make sense. On the back is the visual depiction of the process that we're using right now. That'll help when you're looking, we're talking about the data points. And then you can see it, if you flip that over, this is an example of the template that the officers are filling out, which is where I am receiving the data, which will be later analyzed. So the data points, as I said, are where we're gathering the information. And our goal is to really look at, first of all, this year, we've got a 2-year grant funding cycle. So this first year, we're just gathering information. So we're hoping to look at the current process right now in Benzie County of officers being dispatched specifically for behavioral health calls. So those are calls primarily regarding mental health or substance use issues, possible other psychosis. So knowing that this is the framework we're looking at, the data only includes these types of calls, not any other types of calls they were dispatched to. We're also looking at trends and outcomes then of these specific types between the response for our CIT trained officer and then our non-CIT trained officer. So we're looking, although there are a lot of other variables to consider, these are kind of main points of data. So we started gathering December 2023. We had one respondent for that time, and the rest you can see are through 2024. The demographics that are on here are through July. So I do have, I think, 3 more waiting to be updated for the data. So right now our sample size is 26. You could see the demographics about these current 26 folks. We've got primarily adults. We do have a few juveniles, mostly split pretty close between male and female. Race, we've got listed 13 of our respondents are white, 13 are unknown. We all know this, but I'm still going to say it. The analysis and the data, the way that we can provide you information is only as good as the data that we have. So if I receive call sheets and there's 13 of them have no race listed, then I'm not going to be able to give you that information. So part of this process too, giving you all information and the rest of the team, is also to help us visualize and think of next steps. So what could we change now to get the right information? Maybe there's part of the process that could be adjusted at this point. So I do think it's important, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you all, because this is your community. I am coming in as an outsider with, this looking at literature and fancy sort of research things. But at the end of the day, you all live here. This is your community. So the lived experience of the people that are involved in this is very, very important, which we'll talk about later when we get to analysis. So as I'm talking, you're looking at this, you have questions, you have some clarifications about it. I would welcome all of that, because we're at a stage that we have the opportunity to really hear from you all and then potentially make some adjustments now, so that when I come back at the end of this, I'll have some different information that might be useful. So then you'll see also the breakdown right now of response. We have 8 that our CIT officer responded to and 16 that our non-CIT officers responded to. 2 we don't have data on. General trending right now, most of the calls are coming in during the weekday. It was important to the team when we created this template and looking at the data points and talking to the undersheriff and the sheriff in the community, as well as CMH, looking at these trends so that we could talk about later with sustainability, maybe coming back for some other funding kind of options. If we know there's a shortage on the weekends and, 12 a.m. to 6 p.m., we're getting most of our calls in for behavioral health, that's good information for us to know for prevention of that, for staffing, for other sort of progress and processes change. So we're looking at the general times that they're coming in. We're tracking month of call. I realize now when I printed these, it's not in color. So when you flip over and you look at your graphs, that's not going to be that helpful to you, but I'll just let you know. The back page of here is showing right now what we know for our call disposition. So these are when our 911 calls come in and our dispatchers gathering information, they're checking on this box. On the back, you can see our data points. We want to know specifically, if we, as much as we can, about the types of calls that are coming in. Are they fitting in these categories, or maybe there's something else that we're not even tracking that's happening. So right now for our CIT calls, of those 8, the majority of them were a combination of behavioral health. So they came in as someone experiencing both mental health and substance use challenges. That was the majority. That's also the majority of our non-CIT. So that category itself, a combination of either a potential psychosis, a mental health, and or substance use, all combined together, are what we're seeing the most of. Next would be our mental health category in general. So someone experiencing some behaviors that warrants someone to come out and help them, but it seems like there's some potential safety, but primarily what we're looking at is something's not quite right. We need to kind of get some intervention in to help them. That's our second one. After that is suicide. So calls coming in that someone is currently experiencing some current thoughts or plan or intent for suicide. That's the next number that we're seeing. and then substance use. So calls coming in saying someone is maybe public intoxicated, maybe in addition to that, they could be making some threats. Maybe they are wielding a weapon, but that's the main concern at that point. The next graph is the outcomes of these. So the other piece we're looking at is, this is what the calls came in for. Now we want to find out what is happening. And the information we're gathering are trying to find options for the folks that are experiencing mental health crises to go rather than in incarceration and potentially rather than in hospitalization, if that's an option. But the other piece I want to highlight, and then I'll finish up here, is we're living here, you all, in a rural county. The models that Chip talked about and some of these other like national frameworks that are happening for co-response, most of the research we know are in urban settings. So you all know you have very different barriers and systems that you're navigating. So we're hoping that this is also going to add to the research and literature about how a rural community is managing and navigating some of these. So our outcomes we're looking at primarily, you can see the majority are going to emergency department, from emergency department to a psychiatric hospitalization. So we do have a few that are in lieu of incarceration. We're specifically asking that to be marked because we want to know, in this process, does the officer have the ability to make a decision to, rather than put someone in incarceration, are they able to recognize they need some behavioral health treatment and receive that first? So we're looking at that. So we've got 4 in our non-CIT that were in lieu of incarceration. So they made that decision point. And we have 2 in our CIT trained officer, which is just interesting. So that'll be something we're going to still kind of look at. And then Centra Wellness is also involved, of course, as our CMH provider. So that's a category. And we're looking at, are the officers able to make a decision even in collaboration with them? Is it, we've had a couple that were co-response. So the officer said, I might need a little bit of assistance, called. Centra was able to come out on the scene and do a co-response. We weren't specifically looking for that, but now we tracked it and there were some really good outcomes. So we'll continue to look at that as well. So next steps. I know I'm going through this real fast, but I want to be intentional about of time too. So we're going to continue to gather these sheets. We're going to do this from, depending on, could be up throughout the next year, but we'll probably have a time that we stop for our analysis. I'd like feedback from stakeholders. I'm really interested in doing some qualitative interviews. So talking to 911 dispatchers, both of the officers, potentially folks with lived experience who were the ones that were involved in this process, to get some of their feedback about how the response felt to them, what that might look like differently. And then and analyzing the data. So this 26 sample size is pretty small. So I can't do anything like cool and fancy, but eventually we'll have enough sample size that we can look for some potential causality and some causation and some other information that will help the community understand, is this beneficial? If so, how? And if not, is there any opportunity to make some adjustments? So then at the end, it will be, again, showing these findings, potentially have a presentation. There's some opportunity for some publication or further research down the road. So we're kind of at the starting point. And I would love any questions, clarifications, comments at this point. Thank you.
Tim?
Well, it may not be for you, it might be more for our undersheriff.
Yeah.
How are these calls? I mean, 26 to me being a first responder, knowing that we go out on a lot of these calls. 26 seems low for 7 months for the type of suicide, psychosis, substance use, mental health, welfare checks. So how are these calls? So how are we getting this data set is what I'm getting.
So the form that you see on there, there's a sample in your, I believe there was a sample in your sheet, is completed when there is some action taken by the deputy as far as hospitalization or hospitalization in lieu of incarceration. When that action is taken a step beyond just calming a person down and driving away. When there's hospitalization or other options or utilizing Centra, then this form is completed, and it's completed both by the mental health deputy and by the deputies that don't have the CIT training.
I guess to me, it would be interesting to see number of potential calls that these guys are dealing with and the outcomes, right? You know, it may have been what, 80 or 100 calls that potentially could have been, but only 26 met the criteria that they're looking.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right there. Before this all began, we sat down and we had a few meetings and kind of established our criteria. After about 2 months, we realized that like in most things, that we needed some more criteria and more things that we wanted to record. The biggest thing that I want to know while I'm up there are the unintentional benefits of this. We have Deputy McClatchy, who was our CIT officer. But by recording these and every deputy having to record these when there is some kind of intervention, it has made them more interested, all of the deputies, and we're seeing good results out of that. I'm not sure if 2 years ago any of the deputies would have sought mental health treatment for the people in lieu of jail, because frankly, jail is the much easier option if you're a road deputy. It is, I can get it done and over with in 30 minutes, drop them off to jail and be out of there and be available for calls again. When they started to see this, they know that they've learned other options and they realize that the jail is no place for a lot of these individuals. And that was a benefit we didn't think of, we didn't discuss, we didn't put a checkbox for, but it is happening and it's kind of pretty cool.
Thank you. Awesome.
What else?
Just a couple questions if I could. Greg,
Yes.
just for clarification, it seems like a year or two ago, you and Chip or someone with Chip made a presentation in that Central Wellness is actually funding this position. Am I right about that?
You are correct.
Okay. And with taking somebody to be treated for emotional issues versus putting them in jail, I hate to put a dollar and cents to it, but is it actually cheaper to give them treatment in the long run than it is just to incarcerate them?
It is on my agency. I don't know in the big picture, as far as state tax dollars or CHIPS dollars. But for the county, absolutely, it is cheaper. Because we don't bear that burden and that's not where they belong. Sometimes it is the only option, but we are finding other options, and that's what this program is helping to do. Yes, please.
Reality is, if somebody needs treatment, they're gonna get the treatment anyway. But if we incarcerate them first, we just have to deal with both issues, the incarceration and the treatment. So we're just kind of cutting right to the chase. You hit the treatment first and
Oh, that's a
bypass the
very good
unnecessary
point.
incarceration.
Rather than paying for it.
Yeah.
So someone, and I'm interested in your thoughts, but so someone comes into the system, if they go to jail first, someone is analyzing that situation after they've gotten to jail and makes another determination potentially?
That is correct.
Okay.
But that's on our dime.
Actually have a person from Central Wellness that works with the jails.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'd be interested in what you have to say.
Just that, we know from research that nationally it is more cost effective to not incarcerate folks in both personal settings for jail and prison, as opposed to providing preventative for sure. But then in the moment, rehabilitative services are more cost effective. So it breaks down by buckets. If it's an in-person hospitalization, if it's an intensive outpatient treatment facility, if it's outpatient therapy, there's a lot of different options of what that means. But in that bucket in general, it is less expensive to treat them for rehabilitation than it is to incarcerate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Karen?
Yes, I have a question probably to you, Doctor. Okay, as you were explaining this, and I understand the mental health part of it being more long-term and effective that way. But on your template, is there a way of us finding out information about if it's opioid linked somehow, either mentally or other things? Is that included in this? Because we have money, and if we have data to support that, when people are writing RFPs or whatever to apply for the money. So I'm interested if we could have data that maybe this could give us, that could
Absolutely.
help.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and that's an excellent way to look at it. When we're gathering data, and we talked about this in the beginning, we have opportunity to use this for other areas as well.
Right.
So to your point, if there are things that you are thinking about that could be useful for other projects or for your community that we could add on to this, absolutely. I think substance
Okay.
use, we could break down into what type of substance, alcohol, it's an opioid, that sort of thing. The other piece, though, I want to be very intentional about, and this was part of when we talked about getting the information from the 911 dispatcher as opposed to the dispatcher for the behavioral health calls that you mentioned. They're already have a lot on their plates. And I come in and say, hey, do you mind spending another 30 minutes filling out another form? And it's a lot to ask. So I think your point is well taken, and it's important to consider. I also need to leverage that with an add-on for them to be getting the documentation, and how is it going to interfere with their general flow of work? But I think if we have the opportunity and now we capture some of the data, I definitely think it's worth looking into.
The other thing would be is if it affects children. You know, are there children that are affected by the event?
Yeah, absolutely.
To have that information and linking it to either whatever the substance was, if it's involved with that. That would be very helpful. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yep.
I was just gonna add, just anecdotally speaking, it's been really, really helpful having a direct line to law enforcement, and not even necessarily in crisis situations. We had a case a couple of months ago with one of our clients who was continually at risk of losing his housing, just due to some behaviors. He tends to get frustrated and engage in some behaviors that he is able to control, but chooses not to sometimes. And, you know, we have conversations with him, but having a conversation with a social worker about the impact of your behaviors is not the same as when a law enforcement officer comes and talks to you. And we were able to intervene and ask Rob to go out there and chat with the guy. It's been 2 months, no incident since. And it saved us a lot of work. Kept him out of the ED. It kept him from losing his housing. Yeah, that direct line's been really, really helpful.
Good to know. Yep.
Yeah, and I just wanted to wrap up. This is why I wanted fair state here, because I know intuitively that this is going to work. She's the expert. She knows how to make this work, and for future funding from state models to as Dr. Sotheby's talked about, taking a rural model and going forward. I've had calls from all over the state and the country interested in what's going on here. And so I'm very excited. That's why maybe I built you up too. Got to do it right? You know, and so to me, it really hits home on prevention, getting it in front of folks. And I will say that we've had letters from the state saying, are you having data anomalies because your hospitalization rates are so low? Well, it's because we put a lot of horsepower into these types of things. And that saves money both for the jail and for us to reinvest into more prevention like this. So I really appreciate y'all and the Sheriff's Department working together to make this happen and hopefully take it elsewhere. So thank you.
Sounds like a great opportunity to move forward.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure. We're going to take a short break before we come back to item D.
You're unmuted.
Good. Back in session. We'll move to item D. Consider approving an amended agreement with Cooligo for GIS services. Cooligo.
Yeah.
Legal.
So about 2 years ago, Benzie County entered into.
That door has to stay open, please.
Yep. Benzie County entered into contract with Cooligo for GIS services. Previously, it was being done by Tom Lagenbach, the prior equalization director, as an add-on to his position. We did find, though, that while the duties were being done, they were not being done necessarily accurately and timely. And so we have been working with Cooligo for the last couple of years to do our mapping and parcel maintenance. This includes the data for Brianne's office equalization regarding the data specifically for the parcels, but this also couples in central dispatch and CAD mapping updates as well. Those have to be accurate for obvious reasons. And so each year we bring forward the Cooligo agreement with you to extend it for an additional year. This year, there is additional items added in there that include the parcel data and aerial mapping maintenance, central dispatch, and other services as needed. You've heard from Ed Hookterp about working with Cooligo for parks mapping layers to put that information out into the community. And then there's some other more specific and intricate parcel maintenance that is being done with equalization. We also potentially will have new aerials being taken to here. I think next year is the anticipated year. So there'll be a lot of additional things happening. Even with all these services and what we're paying between central dispatch and equalization and other services, we're still not even near hiring a person with this caliber to do this sort of duty for Benzie County. So contracting still makes sense. I've heard great feedback from the community regarding our parcel maps. People love them. I know the city of Frankfurt and other townships are using them quite often for their services. They're able to go on to the county's mapping for information. So I know it's been a great enhancement for the community, and I would recommend extending it for another year.
Edie, I'm just gonna add that our success is contingent on surrounding yourself with the right people. If this is a resource we need, then we need it.
Yeah, it's become a resource that we rely on here at the county, but like I said, the other jurisdictions are relying on too. So it's important we have that accurate, up-to-date data.
So it's a lengthy motion. If I could just move to approve the motion as written.
Sure.
Janat, that's Janat saying that.
Sauer will second. You can condense
Motion and
that to-
support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item E, consider approving a 2% tribal grant for Hope House of Northwest Michigan.
This motion's a lot shorter. So in front of you today and in your packet is an application for the 2% tribal allocation funding. As you know, this funding has to go through a local municipality. And so typically folks come through the county to apply for this funding. Hope House is a new service that is in Frankfurt. However, it's been around Michigan for quite some time. And so here today are two representatives from Hope House to talk about this new house that is in the city of Frankfurt and what it does to serve our community.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to present and for considering being a sponsor for this 2% grant. I'm Robin Kyler. I'm the executive director of the newly founded Hope House of Northwest Michigan. My treasurer, Gary Falter, is with me today. We are a maternity housing program for single, pregnant, homeless women, 18 years and older. We opened our doors March 1st. As of this past Friday, we house 3 young women and 2 infants at the time. These women come to us anytime during their pregnancy. Once they have the child, they're allowed to live with us for up to 2 years, where we are offering these women a private bedroom. They have a shared kitchen, living room. We offer continuing education, their baby supplies, legal documents, housing, their food, clothing. Many of them come to us with absolutely nothing but the clothes on their back. So we're very pleased to be able to do this for the community. We're presenting this application to the band that we're requesting $34,900 for a gently used passenger van. At this time, it's taking us 2 vehicles to get our moms and the babies to grocery stores, doctor's appointments, to church. So we desperately need a van that we can get all these moms, all the car seats, all the strollers into one vehicle and make sure that they're getting to where they're going safely. Question.
I'd make a comment first. Until I saw this in the packet, I didn't even know there was such a resource in Ramsey County. Good for you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Women's Seniors Resources used to do something similar to this. Do they no longer have any housing in Benzie County? It's a little different because it's also for battered women, but
Correct. We work with the Women's Resource Center just as for them to know that we are a resource, that if they had somebody who was single and pregnant and homeless, that they could nominate them to come to Hope House. We are really the only maternity housing program such as there's several in the state of Michigan. We are the only maternity housing program north of Clare and Midland.
So I might add, they're also supported by the Fresh Winds Community Church, Pastor Chuck Towersey and his family. And I think that's a heck of a relationship to be partnered with.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, yeah. And Robin, I believe you presented at the Human Collaborative here in Benzie too. Yes, ma'am. Yes. We
So-
attend those meetings on a monthly basis.
Right, and that's where I learned about you when you presented on that. I was startled by the statistics reading through your literature here, 54%.
Yes, ma'am. As of the November of 2023, 54% of babies born just in the state of Michigan are to single mothers.
Wow.
I know we're just a small part playing that we can only house for
Yes.
these young women.
And what's amazing about these young women is all 3 are homeless. Had nowhere to go. And when they found out about Hope House and qualified through the application process, just some of the comments from them is, I just cannot believe it's available to them. So it's just been a blessing to us and a blessing to them. And we have a 4th young woman in the pipeline right
Yeah.
now that we're meeting with on Thursday. Very shortly, we could be full. And it is a challenge to transport women to the various places. Robin said, have to only pack them into 2 personal cars to transport. We could apply for this grant for this van, that would help.
And it's your goal to, as you call it, graduate the mothers. And could you mention some of the training that they actually get or have open to them for
Yeah.
preparing them to be successful on their own?
Sure. And it's actually taking place as we speak, training for finance training, taking care of their babies, training for
Centers.
writing, speaking, just a variety of things for life skills, so that when they graduate, they're prepared to go out into the world. These young women, one of them is working on her GED right now, so she'll get that accomplished quickly. And she'll move further into other training, all taking place at the house. Started actually, week.
It's a huge investment in the future, for the future.
Yeah, we also offer job placement services. We've partnered with the Maples. A lot
Correct,
of these
that's what I
girls
was
are
thinking.
very interested. In fact, 2 of our girls have gone through the CNA
Right.
class in other parts of the state. One did pass her exams, so she has the higher education, but not her GED. So while she's
nesting, as we say. She's working on receiving her GED. So we do have, just in Frankfurt and Benzie County, we have job placement services available.
And just as a point of reference, as the treasurer, Hope House has no debt. House is paid for. We don't even have a credit card. We have some money in the bank, great, wonderful donations, grants that have come in. So what I try to tell potential grantors is you're not supporting a sinking ship. Thing is paid for, bought and paid for. The house is beautiful, recently remodeled, all new furniture. It's just a beautiful home for women to live in with babies, and we're very excited.
If I could ask, and then not to get too descriptive, but how far away are these gals from?
They come from, well, we have one young lady from Muskegon, another that just moved in who has ties to Lansing, another one that came from Detroit area. Young woman that's being interviewed Thursday, I believe she has ties Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids.
Yes.
Congratulations to both of you. I think
And
that's
and
wonderful.
just from a Benzie County perspective, if a young woman would apply, she would float to the top of the waiting list. We've already made that determination at the board. This area applies, but we have a commercial that runs on Up North Live. You may have seen it, runs throughout news and broadcasts, and it covers 25 counties. Why we refer to ourselves Hope House of Northwest Michigan.
Very good.
Not relevant to the decision, but is there a house mother or someone that's there on a 24-hour basis?
24 by
Yes,
7.
sir, we are.
This
we-
lady here
Oh.
and my wife.
Yes,
And,
yes, yeah, we are 24/7. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and we're actually have a few part-time openings still and volunteers actively bringing into the home. There is 24/7 coverage.
All our volunteers are vetted. We have background, level 2 background screening required as well as central registry.
Yep. I did go to your website. Good job.
Thank you very much.
I would like to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the grant application for tribal council allocation of 2% funding on behalf of Hope House of Northwest Michigan and authorizes the chair to sign.
Markey will support.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? I'll make one comment. It'll be a privilege to sign that document for you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you for what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
Roll call.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes,
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Motion carried.
thank
Good
you.
luck.
Best of luck. Best of luck. Thanks, Deb. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
It's gonna be a hard one for the tribe.
Item F, consider approving the planning committee members for the materials management planning process and appointing the DPA.
As you know, over 6 months in the works, we've been working with Grand Traverse and Leelanau County to move forward with a regionalized materials management plan. The state of Michigan called upon the plans to be updated statewide. They are providing funding for this update. Because we regionalize with Grand Traverse and Leelanau, what we've done is we've agreed to work together with one planning committee going forward to create this plan that will affect all 3 counties. You reserve the right to be the approval agency of the plan and to implement the plan as you see best fit for Benzie County, but we're all going to follow the same plan as what we agreed to. Part of this process is establishing that materials management planning committee. And in that committee are statutory required members that serve upon that committee. We can't just pick anybody that's walking down the street. It has to be certain specific criteria being met. In the packet, you'll see a list of 11 individuals, 11 members for this committee. You will see that the Village of Lake Ann, Dan Hawkins is on the list to serve on this committee, as well as Corey Brown with Northern Disposal, who also is a Benzie County representative. I will note that Jason Barnhart was going to serve, but he decided to take a step back because he's busy. Lydia also with Grand Traverse County is a Benzie County resident as well. So I feel we're pretty fairly represented on this committee with Benzie County residents, as well as waste haulers and operators that operate here in Benzie County. We are still working on the final position, a representative of a business that generates and managed material. We're waiting to hear back from a few different agencies, Cherry Growers being one of them. So what I'm asking for you today, because we're on a timeline through this process for the state of Michigan, and the state is saying to get the committee formed, whether you have all the members ready or not, I'm asking today to officially establish this committee with the members that are being presented to you, as well as appoint Grand Traverse County and Lydia to be the DPA, the Designated Planning Authority, or Designated Planning Agency. So with that, we have to have one designated planning agency for each region. Grand Traverse County naturally has the deeper bench. They have the manpower to act as that person. Basically, they're the point of contact for a lot of this. So the Eagle and the state of Michigan will communicate more directly with Grand Traverse County. They will answer on behalf of Leland on Benzie, on behalf of the region. It kind of streamlines things for the state, which the state appreciates. So there's not 83 counties coming at them. And it just makes things a little easier for our region. And so we would appoint Grand Traverse County, specifically Lydia Gulau, sorry, as the DPA for the region as well. And I have prepared that packet. Is there any questions regarding the process?
Okay, I would like to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the proposed Regional Materials Management Planning Committee members indicated in the proposed committee list included in the October 8th, 2024 packet materials, and appointed Grand Traverse County and Lydia Goulot, close enough, as the designated planning agency for the regional materials management planning process.
Second.
There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
motion carried.
Item G, consider accepting the apportionment report.
Brianne is on her way up.
And she said, finally.
So I'm here today to present the apportionment report for 2024. I believe it was in the packet, right? So I did include a couple of extra things this year. I did list the top 10 owners by taxable value. I thought this was interesting because it did kind of show a combination between, let's say, industrial, commercial, residential parcels. I also did show a taxable value history since 2014, just to show our progression. There also are some graphs showing revenue sources by classification for real, personal, and the combined, and also the apportionment report and the certification. So this will actually show you the taxable value for each unit, their respective millages, and then the estimated taxable revenue. So, have any questions?
OR asked for, which was basically off the tax roll or not paying full amount,
right,
and the percentage was
37.
Yeah.
to me is extremely high. For everybody else that has to pay the rate. So I'm just, that's a concern to me. I don't know how we do anything about it, but
We really
the
can't.
public should know that this is what they're up against, and this is why some of the issues that we face, that they have to keep asking for more money. And it's basically putting the burden on a small section. Not everybody owns property in this community, just saying. And I always like to point that out, especially when we decide to spend money. It's a huge factor. Thank you.
Because you've brought it up, I would be curious at another date. What do other communities look like? If we're at between 37 and 38%, I think.
For exempt properties?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd just be curious how we fall because it seems extraordinarily high to me also.
Mhm.
And I've been told that historically that it is, but being told it and validating it's two different things. So,
Yeah.
and by the way, I really like the way you laid out the top 10 payers.
Mhm.
I found that interesting information.
Yeah.
I don't see your name.
I don't see your name on there.
Thank God.
So before we have any more discussion, is there a motion to discuss this possibly?
Oh,
Or to approve it? Yeah, I'll make that. I didn't read it yet. Gotta get back to it. That the Board of Commissioners approves the 24 apportionment report as presented by the Equalization Department.
Second.
Is there a motion in support? Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Knapp.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item H, consider request from Chuck Kraus and Parks and Rec regarding the TARP project.
In your packet was quite a bit of materials regarding TARP. TARP has been an acronym that I've heard about since I've been with Benzie County, but we've never quite talked about it much. In our audience today is Chuck Kraus, who is part of TARP, and TARP is near and dear to his heart. And he is here to explain to you kind of the project and what's proposed in Thompsonville, as well as there is a motion in your packet today to support the project so that they can continue to move forward with the project and additional funding.
Morning, Mr. Kraus.
Good morning. Thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity. I am Chuck Kraus. I'm the president of the board of the Thompsonville Area Revitalization Project, which is a nonprofit 501c3. It was created in 2021 to undertake, our mission is to undertake projects which improve the quality of life for all people in the greater Thompsonville area. And as a result of this mission, we identified and made our Keystone project a trailhead at the Thompsonville Junction in Thompsonville, what some of you may know as the Diamond Crossing. And this is a bicycle trailhead, which also includes an ADA compliant visitors pavilion with 2 showers and 2 bathrooms. And there's a campground owned by the village of Thompsonville, which is immediately adjacent, well, is all part of this project. And we would also upgrade the campground to an ADA compliant campground with 2 universally accessible campsites. There'll be a total of 10 campsites. Currently, there are 10 campsites in the village campground. It's a very, very primitive campground. It's been in a state of disrepair for years. And we have partnered with a number of organizations, collaborated with Friends of the Betsy Valley Trail. I personally am on the Parks and Recreation Commission and have presented this, and we've gotten support from the Parks and Rec Commission. We collaborated with the village of Thompsonville to apply for a DNR trust fund grant that we had to go through the village because the village is the municipality. We paid for the grant writer to write the grant, and we are sponsoring the match, a 40% match for this grant application, and we will hear about that hopefully in December. The representative is no longer here, but if the DNR Trust Fund committee approves the grant, it has to go to the legislature, and that gets voted on. Well, this year's just got voted on in October, or actually late September. So we won't have those funds available for a while, but we have raised a considerable amount of money. I think in your packet, you can see what the estimated cost of construction is. It's $874,900, and that doesn't include the design and engineering study that we've gotten a grant for, which was another $76,000. The grant writer's costs were almost $5,000, and the conceptual design study was $15,000. We've gotten grants for that. We recently received a grant of $116,000 from the Impact 100 organization in Traverse City. And we are probably approaching over 2/3 of the funds that we will need to commence construction. Part of the issue is the village owns the property of the park, and the DNR owns the property of the Betsy Valley Trail. So we plan to incorporate all this into our project. We have to get permission to build from the village, which we have done. And the village has to get permission to build from the state and also sign an agreement with the state where they will assume liability for any problems that might occur on that section of the trail. And that's a very short section compared to the total 24 miles present. But we are in the process of working that out. And one of the problems that has come up with the state is that the ownership of the trail is, I believe, the county or the Trail Management Council, or at least the Trail Management Council has in charge of the maintenance of the entire trail. And because of the court settlement that occurred a number of years ago for the section in Crystal Lake, there's some concern that we have to be very clear that we're a separate entity. And so we'd like to ask for a letter of support from the Board of Commissioners in the interest of full transparency and complete disclosure. In your memo today, it says that the village of Thompsonville and TARP has agreed to provide the necessary maintenance and materials to improve the trail near this project initially. And yes, TARP will raise the money and is raising the money to do this. Currently, the village does maintain that part of the trail. And going forward, the village, as I said, will have to sign some sort of an agreement with the state to continue to maintain that portion of the trail, which again is probably about a half mile from Thompson Avenue to Hall Avenue, going south. If you're familiar with Thompsonville, the Diamond Crossing is directly across the street from Gino's. I think I have a picture of the historic marker, which we were involved with getting for the village. And that is right where the trailhead is located. One of our big stumbling blocks or hurdles is we have to move the caboose that's present in the village, because when the village put the caboose where it is, they didn't realize that it was extending into state property. So a third of the caboose is squatting where it shouldn't be. And we will, that's part of our plan. So anyway, I'm open for any questions you might have. We hope, as I indicated in the materials that I think Katie submitted to you, our calendar timeline is that we hope to be able to commence or start moving dirt in April of 2025 if we get the funds to go ahead to do this.
So what's being requested of you is not monetary. It's one is support the project on behalf of the county and the council, but also to agree to the maintenance efforts and what that's going to take to continue to maintain the trail. As you know, the Betsy Valley Trail Management Council is in charge of maintaining the trail in Benzie County on behalf of the DNR. And so it's a matter of the state wants all those documentations in place to ensure that the trail is going to be maintained into the future. And so the motion that is in front of you would do those two things.
That the Board of Commissioners support Thompsonville Area Revitalization Project, including the improvements planned for the Betsy Valley Trail, and agrees to work with the Village of Thompsonville and Thompsonville Area Revitalization Project Board to manage ongoing maintenance associated with the improved Betsy Valley Trail.
Second.
Motion and support, further discussion?
Edie, remind me, on the Betsy Valley Trail, the maintenance of that, does that group get any funds from the state?
Yeah, each year we get a maintenance grant. Typically it's $9,000 to $10,000. I am being told that the recommendation for this year from the state was 15. So we should have an additional $5,000 for this fiscal year from the state for that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I have a question in the write-up and I was intrigued by this. It says, Thompsonville area community. This is to help encourage infrastructure improvements in the village core.
Yes.
Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, we feel that by attracting visitors to Thompsonville, we will, and with the improvements in the park, campground, the improvements in the trailhead and the pavilion, that we would attract interest and visitors, perhaps a new business, and also residents to the village. And we hope by doing so that we would, by the interest that is created by that these people, these individuals, businesses, whatever, would look at Thompsonville through a different lens. And actually, I can say that this is happening already because of the efforts of TARP. We not only are involved with this campground and trailhead project, but we've been planting flowers down on the main street now for 2 years. And someone recently bought an eyesore building that was basically, the roof was collapsing right across the street from Gino's. It was the old grocery store, the old IGA, and I think it was in tax arrears. And this gentleman has bought that property and he's completely renovating it and refurbishing it so that he would like to get some sort of a business or a shop in there. We feel that we're part of the momentum that would encourage improvements in the village itself.
Thank you.
Motion and support. There's no further discussion. Roll call.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good luck with your project. It'll be interesting. Item I, consider approving a services agreement for economic development, visioning, and planning.
So for some time, we've talked on and off about economic development in Benzie County and what it looks like, what we're going to do with it, how do we make an impact. We have a committee that meets monthly, and the folks that comprise that committee are great folks who have a depth knowledge and expertise and commitment to Benzie County. Part of the budgeting process was putting funds aside for economic development activities here in Benzie County. We talked at lengths about how some of that money within the economic development activity department was broadband related. Broadband's really been the big project that economic development has worked on. But then some of the other money was there to really define economic development for Benzie County. In your packet today were 2 proposals that the EDC received, and they were talked about at a few different meetings about how to move forward with the project. Mr. Steve Arwood is the person that the Economic Development Committee would like to work with to move forward. I do believe Commissioner Janata spoke to some of you about, what and why and how. But at the long story short is the funding was available. It was approved with the budget. The EDC committee has worked through this now for quite some time, and they have vetted the proposals before being recommended to you for approval. The hopes is that this individual really is going to create a roadmap for EDC in Benzie County so that we can move forward with that. We do an okay job with economic development in Benzie County, but we really need to take a front seat in how Benzie County is going to look into the future.
The only thing that I would add to this, and I appreciate you bringing it up, Katie, is that the very first thing that we need to understand is, does the county exclusively need to be involved in economic development, or should organizationally we look different? And in my opinion, that's the first thing that we need to ask ourselves. And this gentleman that we're wanting to contract with, as I shared with some of you, probably is the best talent we can find in the state of Michigan to help us do this for the audience's benefit, for the public's benefit. He was the executive director for the MEDC, and he helped organize the Upper Peninsula in their economic development efforts also.
With that, I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves the proposal for SD Arwood LLC to provide economic development planning and strategy in not to exceed amount of 25,000 with funds available in the general fund.
Janat supports.
There's a motion and support. Any further discussion? Gary?
I'm gonna ask it because it's there. Traverse Connect, $10,000 cheaper. Obviously, you have more support for this individual, but I'd like that spelled out to the community. It's quite a big difference.
Karen, if I could.
Go ahead.
We have a long history in this county of trying to contract out economic development activity in the past. We have at one time contracted out with the EDC in Traverse City, and then the Chamber in Traverse City, and then the Alliance for Economic Success. And all of them, in my opinion, didn't move the needle at all. They have, Traverse Connect has a very broad focus. And I know I'm being a little protective when I say this, but I want somebody that will come in and be looking at it with a very independent eye and not what might some of their opportunities be. So yes, we are paying a premium for this. Gary, I think the outcome will be better.
Thank you.
And I would support that. The information that the way he's approaching it is looking at specifics, what both public and business support in Benzie County. And we've seen some success in the UP when he has worked up there. And our chair knows of his history and was able to share a lot of information on that. So to echo what, Commissioner Janat is saying about the specifics for us, I think he's going to give us information that maybe we can uncover other jewels in our community that we can leverage and be stakeholders with us.
Appreciate all the work you guys did. I think to let everybody know. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I appreciate that.
I'm glad you asked the question because there is disparity in the cost,
Yeah.
but you get what you pay for.
Right. Thank you.
Just to make one casual comment, and this is just from observation over quite a few years. Our population grows in the summertime at least 3 times or thereabouts, from 17,000 to 50,000 people. I don't know what gonna bring to Benzie County to keep them people here year round, but it's not gonna be work. Because a good majority of those people come here for the lakes. And when the lakes freeze, they wanna go someplace warm. And I get it. I mean, there's people that haven't found Benzie County yet. Those are the ones that are gonna have to want to be here. And that's the important part is they want to be here when the weather's good, but they don't want to be here in the winter time.
And part of that is broadening the education about the perspective of what the value of the county is.
Oh, sure. I
And so-
totally understand that. I'm just from being in a summer rental business, my folks were, and we were for many, many, many years. And saw the same people year after year. We had some people that have been coming for 35 years. I know the kids, I know they went to weddings, you name it. I mean, it's long. But 90% of them people on Crystal Lake that are seasonal aren't gonna be here after October 1st. I saw a couple yesterday, actually, but
We're all working on.
But I'm glad that you brought that up, because as I see, if my vision and how we move forward, and I've been involved with the EDC for 25 years on and off, is first we need to decide who are we? Secondly, what is the greatest need, the business need in our community right now? To me, it's easy to identify. It's a summer workforce.
tourism, absolutely.
And because we're getting that influx of tourists, but we're not getting the service industry fully staffed. So these are the kinds of things potentially the EDC could work on. Or quite frankly, it may come back and say, you really, there's no reason to have an economic development corporation in your community. We don't know the outcome of that yet. But I fully understand what you're saying. The influx of the people here, they're here just for entertainment. We're not, I don't think the EDC is ever talking about attracting large manufacturers, et cetera. That would be, that's a 20-year plan there.
And there's only so many people that can work at Crystal Mountain in wintertime.
Yeah.
So,
Well, in housing, by the way, all becomes a key component. And
exactly.
I could spend the next hour talking to you about this, but I think, Evan, before I didn't.
Housing, childcare,
Yeah.
Exactly.
infrastructure.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs,
Yes?
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Knapp,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item J, declare a 2016 Ford Explorer surplus. And I'm guessing that'll go on my bid, Sheriff?
I'll make a motion that the 2016 Ford Explorer is described in the memo from Under Sheriff dated October 2nd, 2024 be declared surplus and authorized for sale, with the sale proceeds to be credited to the 425 Equipment Replacement Fund.
Mark, you will support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Cunningham,
Yes.
Knapp,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Roloffs,
Yes?
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
You already have it sold, sir? Sold?
No, sir, I do not. I don't have a script yet.
All righty. So we move on to commissioner reports. It's been kind of quiet for me, but I did have a couple outings, of course, agenda review last week. Area Agency on Aging, they're rebuilding a little bit internally. They've hired Manor Casterison to pull in and do their finance and accounting and take care of the financial stability of the organization right now. There's been some little bit of shortfalls, but it appears that they're going to be coming along just fine. Came over last week to be presented a check from the American Legion Women's Auxiliary in the amount of $2,500 for Benzie County Veterans Affairs. And that was a local lady had crocheted a gorgeous red, white, and blue quilt that they sold tickets to and raffled it off and made the $2,500. And she's from Frankfurt. And that was all happening at the Salute to Services Frankfurt football game. So it was very nice. Some of the Veterans Committee folks were able to be here for the presentation, county administrator, so I appreciate that very much. For you that engaged in the Friday luncheon here at the county chili cook-off, I think there was 8 chilies. I think that everybody did a great job, and I believe someone from the prosecutor's office had got the golden ladle.
3 of the 4 years they've had that
Oh,
gold
really?
ladle.
It's stacked.
We thought for sure with Karen retiring, the rest of us would have a chance.
So what's the secret ingredient? I mean,
Cinnamon.
cinnamon was one of them. Oh, yeah. Yeah. My wife puts maple syrup in ours.
Maybe that's what we should do next year. I don't know.
Right? I did take part as well as so did some of you others with some of these invites from the Chamber of Commerce recently. So it was one in Lake Ann that I attended as well as one at Crystal Mountain. So as well some other fellow commissioners. So if there's any questions, otherwise I'll move on to Commissioner Jeanette.
I provided my report in advance. With respect to the Health Department, I'll defer to Commissioner Sauer because he's the chair of that committee. The only thing that I want to highlight here is I did learn at the Platte Township meeting that the West Benzie Joint Planning Commission, of which is made up of Platte Township and Benzonia, had originally budgeted $5,000 for the fiscal year 24-25, the March to March. And to date, they've spent $38,000. Most of that has to do with the Sunkist project. And I'll just entertain questions.
My guess, I don't know, that a 50-50 split with Benzonia Township.
It's not, Benzonia Township picks up the majority of that. And I forget what the split is, Gary.
The 38,000 is all flats?
Oh, no, that's a combination of, that's the planning commission's budget, or how much they've spent. But it's something like, and somebody else may know this, but Benzonia Township pays for like 65% of it, maybe more.
And that's exactly what kills local zoning lawsuit. It's very nervous.
Those costs are not even for a lawsuit. That's just having to hire legal counsel to walk them through it.
To get where they're at now.
Yeah, because I asked the question. That's all I have.
Thank you. Karen?
I want to make a update. I did not attend Lake Township. I was unable to attend that. Last night was the public hearing for Iron Man at the Garden Theater. There, it looked like there were about 60 or 70 people there in the audience. There were people that rode up on their bikes that drove in from far and abroad in our county. So it seemed like it was well represented. There was Elise Dave, who is the operations manager for Iron Man in this area. She gave a lot of statistics. I requested that information be forwarded to us, because it might be useful for us and helpful in planning and getting that data from her. She did break it down and told what payments were paid directly to Frankfurt and also to the county. So that should be in the report for us from Elise. And I wrote, she also talked about the grants, a little over $20,000 for 21, 22, and 23 was given back to the county in grant form. Then Mayor Howard, after Elise gave her presentation, Mayor Howard shared the correspondence, and there were about, she didn't go into it specific, but she said kind of for, pro, and con against having it again. And overwhelmingly, there were 20 plus correspondence, letters, emails, whatever, that were in favor of it, and only 5 that were not. And those were from both private citizens and also businesses. During public comment was the next section of the evening. Most were in favor of Iron Man. And some of the issues that citizens addressed were that Iron Man is a for-profit. What kind of money can come back into the community? And one of the things mentioned during public comment was maybe they could help support like the robotics club or something like that, or help support the funding for the lighthouse. They mentioned several things, but you're a for-profit. What more could the county or the local areas? The other thing that was brought up, they were very favor. Some people said that it was some of the athletes were rude or did things. Elise answered that. She said they had talked about it the year previous, 2 years previous, and the complaints were addressed. And the public did say that things were markedly improved, and gratitude towards having it here. Another public comment was, in the county, would there be possible that the routes were changed and they're not always the same? Perhaps it goes through downtown Beulah or something like that.
Another area was, that disrupts one of the few Saturdays that the farmer's market has in their limited calendar. They aren't operating that during that time period in Frankfurt and Alberta. So that was brought up, and I don't know. So the citizens brought up quite a few things. Elise was there taking notes, and we should get information. My takeaways were that, well, basically I summarized it there, that it was in favor of it. We should be getting information back so we can be informed in making changes or helping to contribute. But other than that, the rest of my report is writing, but that was last night. Oh, and our very own Karen Kolenka is going to be speaking next Monday. It says 7, but she got changed at my Vet to Vet group. So
Aaron
she's-
Korolenko.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good.
But unless there's some questions, but Iron Man was the big one that I didn't have until last night.
Karen, you mentioned how much money they contributed to the community.
Mhm.
I didn't catch that. How much was it?
I asked for specifics on that because I didn't want to be misquoting. I mentioned the 20,000 plus grants that they have given 3 years in a row, but it is far beyond that, what they have paid for police, fire, public works.
Yeah, but that,
Bensy bus.
that's different though than charitable contributions.
Right.
They're paying for services there.
Right, the grants, is that what you're asking? It was over 20,000 per year.
Per year
20, 21, 22, and 23.
for all 3 years.
20,000 each year,
Oh,
20,000 plus each year.
that's a different number than I've heard, but that's okay.
That's what they said last night. So hopefully it's more than what you heard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, Commissioner Nye is absent, and I will say congratulations to,
Ah,
yeah, Rhonda and her husband Ken welcomed their first granddaughter last week, one day. Everybody's doing fine, and that's where Rhonda is today as well, so. Commissioner Markey?
Then at the MAC conference, pretty interesting. Some of the sessions I attended, Commissioner Sowers at with the Enbridge Straits Maritime Operations Center. Kind of interesting. They monitor every single ship that goes through the Straits of Mackinac. Something that like the Coast Guard and stuff does not do, which was kind of interesting. Also attended something on the 911 systems of cyber threat protection and response. Learned a couple things on that, but because of my history, it's an area that I'm pretty familiar with anyway. Also attended the Central Wellness Networks Community Services and Relations Subcommittee. This session, we focused on adolescent services. And we reviewed the reports on, quality indicator reports on the adolescent services.
Questions for Tim?
If I could, at the risk of putting you on the spot, what was the greatest takeaway you had from the MAC conference?
For me, it was getting to know the actual process of MAC, and networking and seeing, peers throughout the state.
that was mine too.
Glad you went.
All righty. Commissioner Warsecki?
Thank you. Colfax Township. I think I may have mentioned in the past, they've ordered some new signage for the township hall and the cemetery. They're still waiting for that to be delivered. One big thing is they learned that since 2021, they haven't had workman's comp insurance. It was because of a bookkeeping area, so they're currently fixing that problem. They had some building damage over the winter, and as of right now, the contractor is refusing to fix the damage, but they're working on that. Had gym committee meeting and we pretty much discussed all of that today. And then, Benzie bus meetings. I think I mentioned at the last meeting about the director getting her evaluation, but at the last meeting, then the board voted on a raise for the director. It was an 8% raise. 3 of that was, contractually obligated, but they added an additional 5% to that. It still leaves the director 10% below the mean of the comparables. And then the Benzie board is also reviewing and updating their policies. The 3 that I have.
Thanks. Questions? Gary?
Well, I also attended the MAC conference, everybody. And the Enbridge thing impressed me. Cameras they have on those, watching the straits. Ships are required to go through at a certain speed. They monitor everything. And before they go in, they make sure the anchors, they can go right up, zoom in on the anchor, and if it's not secure, you don't go. And of course, they know everything coming through there. It was impressive. I also use that to help with rescues. Something, somebody capsizes the boat or something, they can monitor straits exceptionally well. For a company that's always being thrown under the bus, they've done above and beyond in my book, and I appreciate everything they're doing. And the rest of the conference was good. It's always good to see old friends, and it's also good to talk to new people. And I always get a rude awakening when I talk to somebody from Detroit area. And they have what, 18 commissioners?
I thought it was 19.
Was it 19?
Yeah.
I'm going, how do you guys get anything done? Anyway.
Long day.
Yeah. And some interesting stuff was said. It was very interesting. I appreciate it. The health department, we're working on finalizing the health officer's contract. We're gonna have a special meeting tomorrow to finalize it. I think everything's been addressed. And hopefully we'll have Dan on board at the 25th of November. I think it's a good move. We did talk to one commissioner from that other health department, and he wasn't upset with me for stealing Dan. So anyway, that was good. Of course, he lost in the primary, so he won't be back anyway. That's here nor there. Maples, they're really doing a great job. We're looking at 99.7% occupancy for the year. Over 82% is Benzie County residents, so they're not only doing what we're asked, they're proving it, and they're trying to add a couple beds. Got to get some issues with the building resolved, but that'll come. At a Betsy River Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, 1st of October. And this site we had looked at before. They requested a different site plan for what that individual wanted to do. And they never followed through. And since that time, they're quite possibly going to sell it. The gentleman that wanted to had everything drawn out exceptionally well. Everything, the septic and all that and stuff. So we did approve it with conditions. And the conditions were that he has to resubmit a site plan, but some of the measurements were off, weren't exactly the same, and he wanted to change the size of the outbuilding where he stores his kayaks, and there was no issues. We just needed it drawn up, and seeing how he's an architect, sure, didn't be any major problems. And at Joyfield, they're working on getting bids for the cemetery maintenance. They also introduced a couple of folks running for office. And the hall had a new coat of paint, so it looks really nice. They did an excellent job. Then went to Blaine. Once again, I begged Rebecca to show up, and she did. We talked about the hazard mitigation plan, and I know she's done this repeatedly. I really appreciate all the work she does. And of course, the supervisor doesn't want to address this till the next meeting, but I think it's taken care of, so. And they had to adjust their budget. What they'd planned for state revenue sharing came in about $1,000 less than they anticipated. Last thing was the Mac Ag and Tourism meeting yesterday, and they had a fisheries biologist that's kind of responsible for this whole northern corner, basically from Manistee to Emmett County there, and talked about some of the improvements they made, some of the things that they're doing, and thought it was a really good discussion. I like fishing, so I didn't. But it was interesting. And they went to give us a legislative update, and the legislature is not in session, so nothing's getting done, which beneficial also. So anyway, it was very interesting. Things are going to change here in the next couple, 3 weeks. So that's all I got.
All right, any questions for Gary? You made a comment about some of the lakes. I put in and take out a few boats, and what I've noticed recently, yesterday I got a boat out of Pearl Lake that looked brand new. Boats out of Lake Ann, pontoons have foliage on them, have whatever, but right now, as of the last, one of the worst lakes I've been in is Pearl Lake. I mean, there's stuff an inch thick growing on the pontoons of those boats. So I know there's Eurasian milfoil now in Pearl Lake as well, and they're working on treating that. But somehow or another, we got to do something about the quality. So
Is it algae or
yes,
something that's?
of sorts, yeah. And a lot of it depends on, for those lakes, depends on the wind, what side of Lake you're on, where the prevailing winds are from. But still, I mean, I go back quite a ways. I don't remember that years ago. It's more of the last 10 to 15 years, I think. So hopefully we can work with DNR and get some of those, hopefully treatments. But it's all time and money. No, I know that.
This gentleman said there's only 3 people responsible for this whole area. 5 or 6 section, 2 Ps, 1 spot. It's just, you know, they're overburdening these folks, and so they do what they can, and that's the best thing.
Good. Katie?
Just a few things for me. On 10/1, I went to a housing discussion up at Benzonia. Commissioner Janot was there, as well as other representatives from the community. And really, we talked about housing in Benzie County and, you know, what Benzie County needs into the future and how we can work together to enhance housing and maybe find funding, and, you know, how can we be creative to expand housing in Benzie County. That was facilitated by Housing North. Housing North received quite a bit of funding from Lansing to really bolster their mission of expanding housing and providing, or helping to provide, you know, knowledge and resources to the region regarding housing. So we're going to be getting back together again here in the future to focus more on Benzie County and maybe some of the areas in Benzie County that could be identified as ripe for development of housing. Really great conversation, and a lot of key players in the room. So that was great. Kelly Long went as well. So very cool things happening. Next week on Monday, I will be at Crystal Mountain. It's the Broadband Summit for Merit. I am on 2 panels. So for those that are coming, come and listen. The one panel is Teamwork Makes the Dream Work, to talk about how here in Benzie County, we've worked together as multiple groups in the community to bring, you know, this huge broadband project to Benzie County. And then the other one is a panel with Cherry Capital Communications to talk about the Internet for All and the open access network that we have here in Benzie County as well. So I will be at Crystal Mountain all day on Monday to present on those panels and then partake in some of the other breakout sessions. Just as a reminder from the chamber, specifically for Commissioner Sowers and Warsecki, this Friday is the municipal mingle at the Thompsonville Fire Hall. She's hoping that both of you can attend that meeting. from 3 to 5, I believe it is, on Friday. I also attended the MAC conference last week, as did Rose in my office. We had a huge impact of Benzie County there, which was really cool. A few folks made comment to us about, gosh, there's sure a lot of Benzie here. That's awesome. So very cool that all of us were there. Great conference, some great takeaways. One of the items specifically that I'm going to be bringing forward to you, potentially to maybe implement here in Benzie County, was a breakout specifically regarding brain health and the employee wellness. I know Commissioner Nye thought it was a really great program as well as the others. So maybe bringing that forward here to Benzie County. It's a cool program that really looks at brain health and how you can, be a better employee and a better person, and just, all things related brain health. So super cool program that I'd like to try to bring here to Benzie. Just as a reminder, we are doing a fun little contest this fall that we're calling Gourdoween. So if the commissioners would like to decorate gourds and put them on display, I would love that. By October 31st at the latest, we're gonna put them on display, and then the staff will be able to vote as to whose gourd is the coolest. And on November 15th, which will be Fall Treat Day, if you want to come partake in pumpkin, we will announce the winner of Gourdoween, and we'll just partake in lots of fall treats, and everybody's going to wear flannel that day. So if you're not in the deer stand, come join us. It'll be a nice
That's what we're planning.
flannel, fall treats, Gourdoween. It's going to be a great time. Betsy Valley Trail, obviously there's grants right now regarding that. We are running into some additional, I wouldn't say snafus, but just working through some things. As you know, we're paving the trail here from Beulah on out to Case Road. We are crossing roads in amongst there. We've also developed some possible drainage issues over the trail too, that we're working through. GFA is working with us through that process. So far, nothing's really being delayed. I've communicated with the road commission, and I will with Benzonia soon, about doing a cost share to actually pave Richardson Road here from Case up to the trail, so that there's a nice approach to the trail. The idea is to keep the trail consistently paved across those roads from an ADA accessibility standpoint. So that's why we're looking at potentially paving the approach up to the trail as well, so that there's no, issues with maintenance and plow truck and those sorts of things. As far as you know, the election is coming up November 5th, my husband's birthday even. So I'm going to some more meetings. So I plan to go to the Village of Lake Ann meeting tonight. I plan to go to Elmira Township next week as well. We've already been to a few other meetings, just talking about the millages that are on the county ballot and what those mean and all those sorts of things. Most folks who have requested a ballot have gotten their ballot from their local township clerks. Those were available to the local clerks a bit ago. So many people in the community have received their ballots. And so I want to make sure that we're showing the community that we're accessible for questions and all those sorts of things regarding the county millages that are on those ballots. So I will be at the village tonight for whoever plans to attend, just to answer questions for the village folks. So that's all I have, unless there's questions for me.
Are you scheduled for Crystal Lake Township?
No, not yet, but I will go.
Next Wednesday.
Wednesday? Okay. At what time?
Well, 5:30 or 6.
I'll put it on my calendar now.
Would you
Well,
prefer?
I know.
I go at 6.
yeah.
Go at 6. Okay. Okay,
Parking issue?
I'll plan to be there.
No, but it has been packed there. We're parked on the streets. They bring in extra chairs, so I think it's a good one
Okay.
to go to.
Okay.
And they also broadcast, so
Okay.
other people, it can be seen much more broadly since they do that now. So
I'll plan to be there, and I have a big truck, so I'll have to be there early, or I'll just block the whole road.
It'll be fun.
I'll just drive over some. Just kidding.
yeah, you can go over there.
Any other questions for
Edie,
me?
just two quick hits. What time does that Merit Summit start? I'm signed up for it, but I forgot what time it starts.
Yeah, so on Monday, the first keynote begins at 9 AM, but there is breakfast for the hour before that 9 AM as well.
And right now, there seems to be an abundance of money available for rural communities as it relates to economic development. Are we aware of any of those, and do we have the resources to go after them?
We don't really have the resources to go after a lot of these, a lot of the funding that's out there. I have been in communication with various other folks regarding some of the rural money that's out there for different things. I had a long conversation with Chris from DTE Energy about tapping into some of those rural fundings to continue to expand natural gas. You've probably seen them. They're on Cinder Road heading towards 669 and then coming down Pioneer down to 669. Their intent is to then go down 669 and attach into their mains on 31. So talking to them about how we can support some of the ED or some of that rural money for that purpose. I know that other groups such as Grow Benzie and those sorts of folks are looking at tapping into some of those funds. Some of the funds are specific to who can apply for them. Many of them, you need specific projects in mind, which we don't necessarily have. So it just depends on the bucket that you're looking at. I don't have the manpower to research and decide on which ones to tap into.
I know this can't be decided here today, but I wonder if it's worth having a conversation with Grow Benzie to see if there's any monies out there for the that Steve Atkins, Edward, that we're gonna hire.
Arwood.
If that kind of money might be available. And just contract with Grow Benzie to do that. I've not been in favor of just funding them, but I am in favor of paying them for fee-based services.
Sure. I can touch base with Josh. I know he's working through some rural readiness, projects, grant funding too right now. So I'll see what his plate is like. But maybe there is some opportunity for that. I know a lot of funding, like I said, though, is either project or it's, talent. It's for talent. So we'll have to figure out where are we leaning on that specifically. I'm not aware of projects right now in the hopper to support. So we'll have to look at, are we looking for money for talent? Are we looking for money? What are we doing?
Yeah, I'm specifically looking for money to offset that 25,000. And by the way, you take your direction from the chair, not me. So that's between you and Bob, if he approves of that. But DT and consumers, the conversations I've had with Chris and Eric kind of suggested that they may have some money to help us with funding our organizational approach.
Potentially, if we determine that that's the direction we're going to go, then potentially, yes. DTE partners with a foundation, a St. Clair Foundation, to provide funding, but it's got to be project specific. Consumers Energy also has funding, but again, it's talent and project, and there has to be this mission and goal and all these things established before they'll throw money at you, because they do want to see the deliverables of that money.
Okay. And if I could, a question of Tammy, because I know we won't get an opportunity otherwise, is outside of Platte and Lake Township, are there other polling stations that are collaborating or partnering?
For early voting?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gilmore and City of Frankfurt.
Okay, good. That's all I got. Thank you.
And I would be surprised when we had the clerk meeting on Friday if it doesn't become more at the next time,
Sure.
because they were talking about that.
I'm glad to see that discussion's happening.
Yep.
All right, we will move into our final presentation of correspondence, if any. A little bit for your reading enjoyment, depends within our health department. And we'll follow that up with public input. Anybody like to share? Mr. Evans?
The commission's hard work. It's obvious that you do a lot all the time, and I get to show up here once in a great while. I appreciate the recognition of Art to ask Representative Coffey a question that I hope all of us came away with some information regarding various topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sure.
Hello, I'm Christina Trigg and I'm running for County Commissioner District 3. I would like to add on to Javed's comment about biochar. I too am working with our local garden club to get that information out about biochar. So that's really cool that we have something in synergy. I also wanted to comment on Representative Coffia's universal breakfast and lunch at schools. As a parent with a daughter in Frankfurt schools, that has been absolutely amazing. That's one last thing we have to worry about in the morning is getting all that together. Being in the school as a substitute teacher and sometimes working lunches, that is awesome there as well, because all the kids have to do is get in line and get their lunch. And this vastly different since when I was in school, we had to take care of our little lunch chips. We all knew that our little lunch chips meant certain things, and that's taken all that stigma out too. So I think this is an absolutely wonderful program, and I hope that we can continue with that. And that's all I have to say. Oh, one more thing. This meeting was absolutely wonderful. I thought the feel good of some of the things getting accomplished today was absolutely fantastic. I can see that you all work together and that you have mutual respect for each other, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any other public input? Close public input and look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. 11:40.
See you in